Let's create a Halloween-style text animation.
Yeah, let's get started. Let's start by creating our title text. I'm using the text tool and the font CC Primal Scream from Adobe Fonts. Now I'll duplicate this layer 3 times because this font actually comes with a few different variants that work really nicely together. On the middle layer, I'll set it to regular and give it a white fill. That's going to be our main shape. On the top copy, I'll switch to fill. That adds some dark red highlights at the top of each letter. And on the bottom copy, I'll keep it on outline and set the stroke to a brighter red to make the whole thing pop. Next, let's animate it. I'll select all 3 text layers, and with our extension Squash and Stretch Pro, I'll go into the glitch bundle. Here I'm picking the behaviors Scale and Jump Set 1. I'll also choose one of the sound variants. Then I move the playhead to where I want the animation to end and apply it as a single object, so the texts are not split into individual letters. Finally, I'll drag the generated sound effects down to the bottom of the timeline to keep everything tidy. And to animate the text out, I'm applying the Electric Shock Set 1. So far, the result looks like this. Alright, let's build the spooky background scene. I'll start by dragging my footage into a new composition and duplicating it. The first copy is for my face. We will rotoscope that later, but for now, I will just hide it. On the second copy, I'll apply the Keylight effect to get rid of the blue screen. If you don't have a blue screen, you can use the Roto Brush instead, but I find Keylight still a bit faster. By the way, if you want to learn more about keying, check out my beginner tutorial Guru Lesson 5. Now I'll bring the first layer back, open it in the layer panel, and apply the Roto Brush. Some quick strokes are enough to select everything under the hood. Here the mask is a little bit too big, so I'll hold down Alt while painting to subtract from the selection. Looks good. Let's freeze the selection so it propagates through all frames. That takes a minute, and then we can close the layer panel again. Since my face is now isolated, I can apply a curves effect to make it much darker without affecting the cloak. And yes, the cloak is not really a cloak, it's actually my wife's jacket. Pretty much anything with a hood would work here, and I picked this one because its green color contrasts nicely with the blue screen. Next, let's also darken the cloak itself. I'll apply a curves effect on the Keylight layer, but not as strong as on the face. This way the cloak keeps more detail. On the left, the blue screen didn't fully cover the wall. No problem, we just mask that out. Now for the background. I generated an image with Adobe Firefly with the prompt Spooky Dark Halloween Graveyard. We drop that in and of course give it a curves effect to make it darker. At this point, the cloak still looks a bit too green. To fix that, I'll apply a tint effect and sample one of the bright blue moon colors. Now the cloak blends much better into the background. Next, let's add a skull on top of my face, also generated with Firefly. I'll mask out the skull without the lower jaw, feather it heavily, and lower the opacity. Then I'll position it right over my face. I duplicate the skull layer, and on the copy I mask just the lower jaw, again with some feathering so it blends smoothly. Now we want these skull pieces to move with my head. For that, I'll use our extension MochaImport Plus. I select the footage layer with the blue screen and click Track in MochaImport Plus, which adds the Mocha AE effect. In the effect controls, I click the Mocha button to open the tracker. Inside Mocha, I create 2 tracking layers, one around the eyes and the nose for the skull, and one around the chin for the jaw. We track both at the same time. Note that the lower jaw moves separately, so when I talk, the jaw actually follows along. Instant lip sync, even without lips. When the track is done, I rename the layers for clarity and close Mocha. Back in After Effects, in the Mocha effect, I go to Tracking Data and hit Create Track Data. We can only export one track at a time, so let's start with the jaw. After loading the tracking data into MochaImport Plus, I select the jaw layer, choose corner pin, and click Apply. Corner pin is great because it doesn't just do a simple 2D move, it also reacts to perspective changes like when the head tilts. Important, enable Keep Current Frame so the image stays where it is instead of being warped into the track area. Then I repeat the same steps for the skull. Create the data, import it into MochaImport Plus, apply it with corner pin, and enable Keep Current Frame. Now the skull sticks to my face and the jaw moves as I talk. The result looks like this.
Let's create a Halloween-style text animation.
Since the forehead of the skull is way too prominent, I adjust the masks a bit and also play with the opacity of the skull.
Let's create a Halloween-style text animation.
Yeah, let's get started. Alright, now let's add some animated clouds so the background doesn't feel so static. I'll create a new solid layer and apply the fractal noise effect. For the fractal type, I'll choose Dynamic Twist and tweak the settings to get stronger contrast and some nearly fully black areas. Then I'll disable uniform scaling and stretch the pattern, much wider than tall, so it feels more like clouds drifting across the sky. To animate it, I'll apply a simple expression to the evolution property, time times 50. Now the fractal keeps evolving over time and looks like moving clouds. Next, I'll set the blending mode of this layer to lighten, so it mixes naturally with the background. And just like we did before for the cloak, I'll copy the tint effect from the Keylight layer onto the clouds. That way, the clouds also take on the same bluish tones from the moonlight. We don't want the clouds covering the entire scene, so I'll add another solid with a feathered mask and use it as a matte. This keeps the clouds only in the upper half of the composition. Finally, I move the cloud and matte layers underneath the foreground, and that's it. Here is our final result.
Let's create a Halloween-style text animation.
Yeah, let's get started. This was my Halloween tutorial, and it felt a little bit like a revival because I did a lot of these compositing and tracking based tutorials back in the day and didn't do any of this recently anymore. And I want to know, do you want to see more of this content again, or do you feel like in the age of AI where you can do anything with just a quick prompt, there's no point in these techniques anymore? Let me know. I'm curious to hear your opinion on this, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next tutorial.